And look, they didn't waste time.
Mm-hmm.
They did not.
No, they didn't waste time.
You look back through there. I was chatting with some family members, chatting with my grandma, and I realized like two of her sons were like 10 months apart. I'm like, you wasted no time at all, did you? Like you're going, it's just like one after the other. So you've got all these kids that are like exactly a year apart.
Oh my
just
God.
1 year in difference,
well,
basically.
and so imagine you have a house that is 12, just constantly booming all day, and you're just like, as a parent, you're like, can I just get some peace and quiet?
Yeah.
And so you tell them things like, that's why you don't whistle at night, or that's why you don't make noise at night, that's why you don't go clapping at night, that's why you don't do this at night. And then it's a lot of rules. So my parent, I don't know why this is a rule. I don't know how much of this is a running joke in our community is, why is it whenever there was a lightning storm nearby, we had to turn off everything in the house?
Same.
Same?
Yeah, turn off everything.
Yeah, because...
And don't touch the telephone.
Yeah, exactly. They made it seem like the lightning was going to come get you.
Yeah, same. Well, it's funny because I even had that... I was having that conversation just the other day. We were talking about something similar, where it's like, so my mom still has a corded telephone too. And I'm like, okay, I get the corded telephone, I guess, maybe. Like, some of this even, I don't know, it's almost like before the era of kind of like the crazy spam kind of cultish emails that would get sent out, like, check the change slots before you stick your fingers in to get your change because people are putting HIV needles inside.
Oh my gosh, I thought that was real.
Yeah,
I did not want to go.
I heard that as a kid.
I never used a payphone in the city ever.
You're always like, let me look. Like I'm at school as like a 6-year-old going like, let me make sure there's not a needle in the in the Coke machine, right? And I think some of it was probably something similar to that. There was kind of this kind of I don't know what they're referred to elsewhere, but they're
the needles in the Halloween candy.
Yeah, or they're going to just give out free drugs to kids. They're just giving out edibles, right?
Yeah, because that stuff's cheap enough to just pass it out to everybody.
But so they always it was just always referred to as old wives' tales, right? Mm-hmm. That was just kind of passed around, and so it's similar to that, like the phone, right? This is like you don't take a shower because you'll die. Lightning storm, the house will get struck by lightning and you'll die. And those probably came from some place of someone dying in the shower, getting struck by lightning in some house in the 1920s when there was no code for building the house whatsoever, right? Or someone on a landline, and it's they've heard this horror story of lightning striking the tin roof and coming through the phone lines and blowing the person's arm in the receiver through their head, into the wall.
Just like in Stranger Things, we
had to unplug everything, and I heard to unplug that TV. We can't afford to buy another one.
Same.
Right?
No, that's why we had surge protectors. So that way it was just. That's why we had power strips. So that way everything was just one unplug every time. Oh, it's raining. Oh, rain's coming, and then you just unplug it.
And then you could get the one where you plug the phone line into one side of the surge protector and the other phone line out into the other side. But all that stuff. So you had that. There was other ones that we were told. Like we always got like the don't play in the fire, you'll pee the bed. Like that's the one.
Don't fire the what?
You never play in the fire because you'll piss the bed.
Oh yeah.
If you play in the fire, you pee in the bed. Don't pick up frogs, you get warts.
Yep.
Right? We get, just the list goes on and on and on and on. Like you just basically anything that you needed to stay away from in the woods, or you need to stay away from it. There was some cautionary something around it. It's like don't do that. Whatever.
That always made me wonder really about. Just the validity of some of these scary stories too. Yeah. Just because it's like how much of that is really just at face value, give your parents an opportunity to look at your candy because there might be weapons, there might be drugs, they might have handed you poison,
right?
They might have put needles in it. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, you think about it, if you don't tell kids that, they're going to eat the candy as they get it. There's going to be wrappers scattered all around the neighborhood. Right. They're going to be sugar high. They're going to crash. Right. They're going to eat so much candy, they're going to be sick.
Right, yeah.
But if you tell them, you give them explicit instructions, do not touch that candy until you get home and I inspect it or you will die. Yeah. Then they don't touch it. Yeah. Then you don't have candy wrappers all across the street. You don't have people all full of sugar wandering around the streets. And it might have just been a footloose problem, you know? It's just like we just tell them that, so nobody dances.
When it just kind of becomes a thing and it just stays, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you were talking about like some of the Ouija stuff and some of the Ouija board things and stuff like that. For me, like Ouija boards were barred from our house for religious reasons, right? When I was growing up, like all of that stuff. Like I grew up in a house that was so religious that when Harry Potter came out, that they actively protested it.
Yep.
Right? And it's like witchcraft. They're selling witchcraft to our children, and it's going to be the downfall of our nation. Right?
I was the same.
Yeah.
I wasn't that well, I shouldn't say that extreme. We didn't choose Harry Potter, but we chose Halloween. My house wasn't allowed for Halloween for like a certain period. When we finally kicked that, I shouldn't say kicked. It was just that one pastor that was really. Once that pastor left and the other guy came, it was a guy. It was the 20th century. It was a godsend because Halloween was back on. It's like the pause button was unpaused, and it was nice. But same. So I completely get it. So I was, we have like the traditional Navajo beliefs, but my family is primarily Baptist, and so at least my immediate family.
Yeah, and if you're talking like more like traditional Baptist, then it's very similar to kind of Southern Pentecostal beliefs.
Yes,
too.
Ours was not the very like popularized where you're clapping your hands. This was very like everyone stand up straight.
Yep.
Like it's a military line.
Yep.
And the pews need to be absolutely straight. You had like someone with a chalk line basically making sure all the pews were like lined up. And it was very dry sermons, and it was always the only person making noise was the pastor. They yelled a lot. It was very like you are.
Well, see, it's interesting because like the beliefs are very similar, but then the kind of the Pentecostalism. And again, I'll butcher it, but kind of going down that path of like they went through this whole thing where it's like they believe in like speaking in tongues and like the spirit coming down type of thing, So like they would start church. I remember being as a kid going to church on like a Sunday night and coming home at like midnight, right? Because they would start and they had music. They're loud. Like just like Southern Pentecostal bass line. It's like boom, 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 boom. Then they got like the little run that's like boom, 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 boom. They're just like screaming and shouting and like running up and down the aisles and like anointing people with oil and kind of doing all this stuff. And that's kind of where I was going next. Is we're kind of talking some superstition.
It's funny you mentioned that. I'm looking up something to make sure I don't mess this up. I am keeping this. These are people I know. I'm going to do my best to keep it anonymous. So do you have like scary story music? Do you do this?
Yeah, I'll plug it in. I'll plug it in after the fact.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So this story is tied to the religious side of mine, on the church going side. So there's people that I know really close that were in relationship issue. They were really about to get with somebody that was not of the faith.
Right.
They were actually of a different religion. Have you ever heard of Eckankar?
No.
So I don't really know what Eckankar is, honestly, but it's kind of a it's a cult. I mean, all religions cult, you could argue, but this is very much like a unique following. And it's very spiritual based in that it's almost like heavily supernatural. It has a lot to do with crystals. Gotcha. A lot of involvement around Sedona. Like Sedona is a very like sacred place, quote unquote, for them. And this person that was in this relationship, they were trying to get married, and they wanted to get married in the church, and they weren't allowed to get married in the church because the man was a Eckankar. Apparently, he was prominent figure, so they had to get married at Sedona. And on their way up to Sedona, this winding road to get up to Sedona, to get up to the very top, they went and got into a car crash. Basically like derailed because they were trying to. They were like scoping it out. It wasn't like the actual wedding day.
Yeah.
But I got into a car crash, and the person that I know got pretty banged up, and then the person that was kind of a head honcho up there did not. Walked away completely unscathed, didn't even go to the hospital. And so eventually they just said, I think the individual kind of was like, I can see he's not a good guy. He's got a lot more going on than what he was showing me. Yeah, it was a very quick relationship. Like, it escalated very quick to like a marriage thing. And just noticed like, hey, I got to get out of here. And so she leaves. But was still getting these weird almost like supernatural things where felt like people were having a hand on your chest while you're sleeping, like you were having out-of-body experiences while you're sleeping. Like you'd wake up but see yourself from the other side of the room and somebody was standing over you and just wasn't sure what was going on. Just kept having these recurring things going on. And so went to kind of a, I don't know what you would call it, like a soothsayer. And that kind of soothsayer just basically told that person, do you have anything that this person gave you left? She's like, no, like we never got married, we never we never did officially move in together, so I don't really know, everything that person known. He was a minimalist, so I can't think of anything they gave me. And right before the conversation ended, he's like, well, actually I have this ring, that he gave me at some point when we first started, but didn't really give it to me. It was just kind of something I got while we were together. And as soon as that soothsayer grabbed that ring, they said that's how that person's keeping in contact with you, because there was a crystal on it.
Wow.
And didn't know. She this whole time had no idea there was a crystal there. And apparently was keeping contact, keeping connection to that person the entire time.
Wow.
And so went to the church nearby in kind of in my community and just had like a healing circle. And this is like firsthand story. So this is the part that gets me. Everything was kind of like eerie up to now.
Yeah.
The story, so they had, because it's a very old kind of like Baptist church, they had this moment where they were just like, let's have a prayer circle, I guess, in a way, where they all kind of like join hands and with the person in the middle, kind of everyone touching him. And if you were in that room, apparently, this is all hearsay, but while they were praying the thing away, whatever it was, there was this black, opaque figure thing that almost like resembled like Voldemort when it would come in and out. The way it was, that's kind of how I can liken it to, based on the way the story was told to me. That thing was slowly evacuating out of that prayer circle and like spiraling up into the atmosphere. And after that occurred, like never had anything happen after that. There was no more there was no more issues sleeping. There was no more of those instances of like seeing yourself across the bedroom. It just completely went away. And this isn't like, oh, this was back in the 20s. This is maybe like 20 years ago. Yeah. So, and these are, once again, these are all people I know. And so when I heard that story come from a place of, well, one, it came from someone that I never thought would believe in it. It's just like, oh, this person is 100% church, 100%. I'm not church. It just, sometimes I don't attribute, like, for some reason, I think, like, I attribute baptism, like, I attribute, like, Exorcism, Emily Rose, The Conjuring, like, all of that, for some reason, I associate with Catholicism. Right. And I think that's not Baptist for some reason. Right. And because we don't have those stories, and maybe that's maybe that's by design. We just don't talk about that. And
it's wild because to me, like, there's this, and again, loose understanding of it, because I departed from kind of that religious view from the point when I was no longer forced to attend it. But in that kind of Pentecostal circle, there is that kind of general belief that you're sick, demon, right? Like, you're sick, the demon, we're going to cast it out of you.
Oh, God.
Like, so there is that. There's seriously, like, they believe in, like, anointed people with oil. So they have, like, a bottle of freaking olive oil, basically, and they're, like, pastor, preacher, like, slapping you in the head with olive oil. And that kind of prayer circle kind of thing that you were just talking about, it's common thing. Like, that's common sight there, to where you'll have a person that's ill, or a person that has problems, or a person that's going through something, or I even chat about this a little bit in some of the other stuff that I've been having conversations around. Like, if you brought up the fact that you were having, like, depression, like, fuck, get in the middle, we're going to pray for you. Get that demon right out of you, because that's a demon. That's the devil. That's nothing else. That's the devil. That's why you're depressed, right? And so I've even heard this in some more kind of recent Pentecostal beliefs, that they even believe that follows, like, family lineage, that you're like, your great-great-granddad did something evil, and now you all are suffering down the line from his sin, or their sin, and you're going to have to get those demons out of your family line, right? they're going to have to pray, and you're going to have to donate a lot of money to the church, and that's how we're going to get this out of you, right? But it's interesting that you bring that up, because for sure, like you see like that kind of image of